Welcome to the Jay Duke Show on the Jumping Instructors Network. Here we are Monday night and another episode that we're looking forward to very, very much. Tonight is our health and wellness show, and I'm very excited to have Sharon, Klaussen, and Dani Conway joining me. It's so important for riders to look after themselves and to be the best athletes they can be. I'm looking forward to your questions, which we're going to take at the end of the show. So please send in any questions that you may have. Put them in the comment section. We'll try to get to those as many as we can at the end. Tonight's show is being brought to you by FarmVet, which is your best source for premier source for horse and pet supplements, supplies, and prescriptions. There's two things that make a great company, and that's great service and great products, and that's what FarmVet provides every single time for you. So check them out. Use the code The Jay Duke Show for your 10% discount. I want to introduce to you my two guests this evening. We have Sharon Klaussen from Omaha, Nebraska. Hi, Sharon. Sharon has a whole lot of letters after her name. She's a PT, ATC, CREP. She graduated from the University of Nebraska in 1981. She's worked for over 38 years in orthopedics and sports medicine. She took additional training and received her certification of equine rehabilitation practitioner from the University of Tennessee. And she is also a permitted equine therapist for FEI events. Her past work experiences include working at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, NCAA sports, and private orthopedic and sports medicine practices. Her current practice, Serenity Physical Therapy, involves working with equestrian and equine athletes throughout the United States and internationally, both at the national and FEI levels. Also joining me tonight on this fabulous episode is Dani Conway from Sacramento, California. She's been in private practice in the nutrition and fitness industry for over 13 years. She's helped hundreds of busy women, as well as equestrian athletes, with a results-oriented #undiet formula, which has been featured on Good Day Sacramento. She's a certified Czech holistic lifestyle coach, an advanced metabolic typing clinical advisor, a Kalish method functional medicine practitioner. I hope I'm getting some of these words right. She's a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and she's a ketogenic nutrition and metabolic protocol advisor. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm really looking forward to this. I think this is such an important topic for all equestrians out there to really learn how to look after themselves and to look after themselves on so many ways, on a physical level, on an emotional level. And not only is that going to lead to more success in the ring, it's going to lead to happier and healthier people. Sharon, tell us a little bit about your background in the sport.
Well, my background, I graduated in 1981, and I had horses at that time. And I was a physical therapist. I'm a physical therapist, athletic trainer. That's only part of my letters. And I took horses all the way up to the Grand Prix level. I have a 26-stall barn that I train jumpers, predominantly in jumpers, but I'm working currently now. I was at the head physio at WEG, and so I work with all disciplines, basically. And so I work with any kind of horse, any kind of rider, and I do biomechanical interplay between horse and rider. So I see about 30 to 40 horses a week and 30 to 40 riders a week at the shows. So I'm pretty busy. And it competes.
That's pretty busy. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. Dani, how about you?
Yeah, so I've been in practice, private practice for 13 years now, functional nutritionist and functional medicine practitioner. And on the riding side of things, I'm going to compete at the as an adult amateur and combine my passion for horses and riding with my work and my passion for nutrition. So I'm really working with equestrian athletes now for about 7 years. And then, like I said, in practice for 13, really focusing on a customized approach to nutrition. I don't believe that one size fits all. So that's really important. And then also rebalancing the body from the inside out. So looking at hormones, digestion, and a lot more than just food when it comes to overall health and wellness.
Wow. Well, it's great to see people like yourselves contributing to the sport in this way. And I think for a long time, riding was not necessarily, it was a bit of a hobby per se, perceived that way. And I know that perception is still there. Certainly when it comes to health, things have changed dramatically. I have some stories that I probably can't share from back in the 80s and 90s as far as what the athletes would do to prepare for competition.
Yeah.
Especially when you're riding with the Brits and the Dutch. Some pretty interesting times. The Germans always took themselves very, very seriously, and I think that's why they always kicked our butts all the time. But now, now people are really looking after themselves and doing everything they can to prepare and take it much more seriously. And that's the case in all sports.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear from you two kind of how you've seen the evolution of riders, specifically how they have taken care of their bodies and what they're trying to do today to be healthy and top athletes. Dani, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think historically, when we look back at barn food and show food, horse show food, we see a lot of candy and other snacks and not complete meals kind of hanging around the barn and grabbing what you can, in between classes or in between rides, and then wondering why we might feel low energy, having energy crashes in the afternoon, reaching for excess caffeine, things of that nature. And I think that's definitely come full circle, especially, depending on how much riding somebody's doing, of course. And, people are looking for more, looking at food as more, like I always say, fuel your ride. So how can they fuel their ride better? How can they fuel their bodies, much better as far as what they're eating on a daily basis? And really kind of having a better focus than, the candy and the stuff that we used to see years ago.
So would you just say get rid of all the sweets and candy from the barn aisles completely?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, like in a perfect world, that would be, that would be great. But the reality is that's probably not going to happen. So, really just approaching food and snacks from a more whole food perspective, so that maybe when that stuff is there, you might grab one instead of 10 or 20, and have it be a little bit much at that point.
Right. And what, just while we're on that, as far as like say snacks in the aisleway or such, is there, what types of food should people be looking at or drinks?
Yeah. If we're talking about like non-perishables that could just kind of be around for a few days or be brought to a show, that kind of thing. Nuts and seeds, like a, homemade trail mix. If you have refrigeration, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, if you tolerate dairy, just making sure you're getting some extra protein. Beef jerky that's not kind of loaded with extra sodium and sugar and additives. Those are kind of good staples to kind of think about. And then if someone has access to like refrigeration, like I mentioned, or a cooler, or maybe there's restaurants close by, or shopping and food close by, then you could look at maybe some deli meats, veggies, fruits, things that can be taken to the show, to the barn, and that kind of thing.
Nice. Sharon, what have you noticed? 38 years is a long time in the business.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've seen a big culture change there as far as preparation for competition and athleticism. What have you noticed?
Well, I think I've noticed that throughout the time as sports medicine has advanced from such a long time ago, they used to consider the horses as the only athletes. And I think there's an awareness now that they are an athlete as well, particularly as we're trying to, here in the United States, compete with other nations. And it's very important. And many of our top riders have started to really institute a lot of individualized exercise plans, which coincides with what Dani's talking about. Nutrition fuels the musculoskeletal standpoint. So people are starting to be much more aware of that, and they're wanting it. I think the most difficult thing is where do they get the information, and making sure that they get that from professionals. And it's so much, this is the only sport that's interesting of all the sports I've been involved that's kind of late coming into the game. But people are grasping it. They want to do it. It has to be easy. You have to set your athlete up for success. You can't give them 8 million exercises to do. And also there are areas that that are sport specific injuries, or areas that we have biomechanical faults. And also I think that it's really important. We live a different lifestyle. We travel from show to show. It's got to be easy. I can make up laminated things and throw them in the tack trunks. You can, make up exercise bands that they use in their hotel room. And it just has to be very, very easy for the athletes. But people want to learn more. They want to learn more about how to take care of their bodies.
Right. No, absolutely. And what, as far as today's athletics as a rider, I always look at the sport as a 50-50. I look at it as a team sport. The show jumping is not an individual sport. It takes, the rider and the horse working together, and they're partners on the team. As far as from an athletic point of view of the rider, of course, the perception / misconception is that riders aren't athletes. They just sit there and the horse does all the work. Sharon, what how would you look at the rider as a professional athlete?
I do an awful lot, an extensive amount of biomechanical evaluations of individually the horse and then individually the rider and then the two of them together. There's a lot of research that is starting to come out about what we see and who affects whom. And I've taken case studies, maybe, 500 or so. And I've been able, as a physical therapist that treats both horses and riders, I've been able to see in only my anecdotal evidence that the rider actually affects the horse more than the horse affects the rider. And it's something that we need to really kind of look at because we can fix both the species and their performances will improve. And I think that's gaining a lot of traction in equestrian sports in all disciplines.
And Dani?
I definitely think that, we have to look at the rider and the equine as athletes, as well as far as like performance and recovery goes. So a lot of the complaints I hear from riders are that or the goal, I should say, is that they want to recover better. So that is going to be, getting enough protein on a daily basis, making sure that they fuel their muscles to be able to recover properly. Electrolytes is another big one, especially, in the summertime, because a lot of people are located in really hot, humid climates, and there might be, sweating all day long. Of course, water intake plays a big role. And then also sleep. So we don't tend to think of the things that don't really have to do with food, but sleep. But sleep is really important as far as recovery goes, from physically to mentally, to be able to focus and not be foggy the next day, to our physical recovery as well. And then hormone balance. So stress hormones, cortisol, all of that is going to play a role as far as recovery goes.
With show jumping, with any competition, of course, but we deal all the time with nerves. There's a lot of anxiety that goes along with it. There's a lot of stress that goes along with it for a multitude of reasons. How can people help themselves with nutrition to alleviate some of those effects, or to stay more positive and be a little less nervous? I don't know. Is that even possible?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. So when it comes to balancing nutrition or balancing food, my approach is to look at what are called macros or macronutrients. So that's the amount of proteins, fats, and carbs that someone's going to eat on a daily basis. And when we are off kilter or off balance with the amount of proteins, fats, or carbs that we're eating, that can affect our digestion, that can affect our mood, that can affect our fogginess or ability to think clearly. And all of that is going to make a big difference as far as, riding and performance, being able to remember a course, that kind of thing. So if we can, get enough protein, get enough good quality fat, all of that is going to help to balance some of those nerves, especially because a lot of that anxiety and depression can be rooted from too many refined carbohydrates and too much sugar. So if we go back to kind of like we were talking about the candy or the sugar cravings, and just kind of grabbing what's there, not without realizing it, we can actually be exacerbating the problem of the anxiety and mood, swings versus helping it with that type of stuff.
And when you talk about the fats and the proteins that you do want to be focusing on, what does that look like? Like what I understand what that is, but then, if I go to the store, where do I find this good fat and this good protein?
So, everything from good fats, avocados, olive oil, nuts, coconut, nuts and seeds. I just said nuts, seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. So foods that are really natural to nature and that aren't, packaged foods that are called healthy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really easy to come by. I have clients that will take an avocado with them, an avocado a day, cut it open and eat it with a spoon kind of thing. So there's really easy ways to kind of adapt this stuff. As far as proteins, if you're a meat eater, turkey, deli meats, things like that, chicken, eggs. If you don't eat meat, then maybe pea protein, hemp protein. So just looking at what is aligned with whatever dietary belief that you have, and trying to get the best quality foods for, to kind of bring in the best of both of those worlds.
Okay. Yeah. Cause it is good. Again, I want to know it from a practical point of view. I'm running into the grocery store and, I'm going to pick up a few things for the day so that my daughter can get through her day. And that it is good to know, because I think sometimes the labeling I don't always trust is that, is that really good for you? It says organic. Does that mean, but I think it can be a little bit misleading. Sharon, what do you notice, from your perspective as far as dealing with, especially, I guess let's even talk about the anxiety issue. I see now a lot more students that have serious anxiety, and many of them are able to manage it and control it, and the horses is a great therapy for that. But it still can be a very difficult thing to deal with. What do you see, and how do you help that?
Well, I think from a societal standpoint and where the world is now, when we're talking about children and juniors, and even as we go into the adult amateurs and on above, they have a lot of anxiety. There's social media that adds to an awful lot of that. They don't know how to cope with it. The trainers or even the parents aren't aware of what to do to help them out. So I see, kind of to tail off of what Dani's saying, I see a lot of what she's talking about, these kids that come in and they're just eating candy and then they're just hyped up, and they might come to me for advice regarding a musculoskeletal injury, but I can actually feel the tension in their body, which creates then poor posture, poor body control. And so I do have a degree in psychology, which I didn't put those letters after my name. But we really talk about, I've worked with some top sports psychologists and Olympic psychologists. And so we really talk about what works for them. What can we do? How can we help that out? What's realistic? It has to be practical for them. Do they look at their course and then go away? And one of the biggest tips I can tell you is that there's a lot of visualization that goes into the course, where you go in, and I have this one amateur that she'll go to the bathroom and she'll just sit in the bathroom and she'll go like, okay, I've got 4 strides of this. But taking yourself out of that anxiety and setting yourself up for success when you do go onto your course. So if you have anxiety and you have a lot of stress, it's going to show up and manifest itself physically. And so I can feel riders that are on a circuit, particularly like women, it affects their cervical area, upper back, and men, low back. So I see a change as they go throughout like a circuit. And I'm like, okay, you're not handling this very well. How many horses are you riding? Or, are you trying to get, are you trying to do equitation finals? Or is your trainer really being hard on you? Or you're trying to get to, ride level in FEI, you're trying to get to a 2-star, 5-star. So I think that's something that a sports psychologist and doing sports psychology is very important. It's part of the team. And we have to treat these equine athletes and equestrian athletes, they're part of a team. That's what we do in human sports medicine. So it's all about a team.
So you have a rider that comes to you and says, I'm just, my nerves are debilitating. Like it's getting in, okay, more than one rider, but when that happens, where do you start? What advice do you have for them? And obviously I know every case is different and whatever, but you must have some sort of basis to begin with and then go from there.
Well, I really have to determine, why are they nervous? Are they, like for jumpers, are they jumping beyond their level? Do they have parents that are like, you have to do this and you have to win? Do they have a lot of pressure, external pressure? Do they not feel good, physically feel good? Are they, do they stay out late? Do they not get enough sleep, which ties in right to, what Dani's talking about. So it's really kind of identify, why are you worried? Why are you so worried? And then there's a lot of motivation that goes into it. And it's really kind of talk therapy. We just kind of talk about it, and then I give them coping skills. So whomever it is, I give them coping skills that they can then go back. And then generally what I do is I try to talk to, if they're under the age of 18, I try to talk to the parents, and I also try to talk to the trainer so that they're aware of it, And I talk to the parents first, and then, get their, ability to be able to talk to the trainers. But it really is a big problem.
And do you find this also at the top level of the sport, at the international level of the sport? As I think a lot of young riders or amateur riders think, oh, it's just me and da-da-da-da-da. But can you talk, and again, you don't have to mention any names, but talk a little bit about how that affects the elite?
Well, you in any elite athlete, what you want to do is you want to reach peak performance. So you want to peak at a certain time. So many athletes have a program that they go through. You know, it's a ritual what they go through. However, working at the World Equestrian Games, there are some athletes, not to mention them, that don't really have a program. So they can get by with it. So it kind of depends upon the personality. They just kind of, but they're able to adapt to it. And some athletes just, they just go out and they just do it, where other athletes, like individuals that you've had on your show or whatever, they're very methodical about it. So whatever works for them. But then there are elite athletes that are just really worried. They're just like, oh my gosh, did you see the size of that course? And it's 5-star and it's a, you know, prize money on it, and they have to make money, and they've got the sponsor, and they, you know, so yeah, it's very much the elite athletes. So we really talk through it. And I think because I touch them and the feel, because I'm working with them physically, I think that kind of works in a way that they feel that I'm really there for them. And so from a sports psychology standpoint, and they're injured, I can work with them. They know that I'm caring about them, that I really want them. You know, I'm on their team as well, and I want them to do them and their horses best as they possibly can.
Nice. So, Dani, I want to ask you, as far as from preparing for American horse shows, North American horse shows are very different than in Europe. Because in Europe, typically you go to the show for the weekend and then you go home. So you spend most of your time at home and a little bit of the time on the road. Mm-hmm. American shows are not set up that way. You're on the road 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 weeks, and sometimes even more. Yeah. So if I say to you, you know, my daughter's a rider, you know, we're going on the road for the next 4 horse shows, and, you know, we're going to be living out of a hotel. You know, we don't have access to a kitchen and that. What recommendations would you have for myself and for my daughter as far as to get through that month in the best way we can from a health perspective?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, you know, I do recommend for my clients, especially that, you know, just to at least try to get a refrigerator in their hotel room. That can help tremendously. So assuming that that's the case, definitely looking at the types of snack foods that I've already mentioned, just to kind of keep those on hand. You know, like I said, hopefully you might have access to a grocery store where you can pick those up along the way, or like we're talking about, like on a circuit kind of thing, where there might be, you know, stores locally to go to. Beyond that, what, you know, as far as like what I focus with my clients is what type of nutrition, like what balance of protein, fats, and carbs they need for their body and for their metabolism. So they can go to, and they can walk up to any, you know, go into any restaurant, any food stand, any food establishment really, and know how to order for what they need. So if someone is just kind of looking at generally, they want to make sure that they get some protein with every meal, they get some veggies with every meal, and we try to stay away from like what we would call like the white bread type foods, like the, you know, breads and starchy refined flours, and make sure that, I'm not saying not to eat those foods, because some people do need more carbohydrates than others do. But just focusing on the veggies and the proteins first, and then a little bit of starch sort of at the end of the meal would be the best recommendation.
Nice. Okay. Sharon, for that same trip, you know, when horse shows are so all consuming with your time, you know, typically, even if we're at the show with my daughter again with 2 horses, when we're there from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, and then quick dinner, and then back for night check. What do you recommend for how to mentally get through that period of time? Like, do you recommend, if possible, doing something off-site, like maybe going on a day trip if you get a chance, or go to a movie, or doing something along those lines if that allows? Or what do you recommend to people for their mental health to get through being on the road and away from family?
Well, I think it depends, of course, on the person, because we're all individuals. I've lived on the road for 12 weeks at a time, just at one circuit. And I think it's survival to a certain extent. And if you have children, it's going to be different than adult amateurs, because if you're on the road for all that length of time, you kind of have to plan it. And as parents, you need a break. You need, a horse show is not it's not reality, you know, and you're there the entire time. So if you take your daughter, for example, and you're going to go to the show and you're going to be there from 5 or 6, I mean, I'm usually there from like 4:30 until 8 sometimes, you know, and I have to kind of make sure that I take times. I think the biggest thing I would tell you, having done this for such a long time, is take the time to take a break. Take yourself out of the frenzy of the horse show. go away and sit down, whether it's listening to music, whether it's putting headphones on, check out, just check out for whatever. We sit around and wait and wait and wait, and you don't know. But I would say take your day off, plan your day off. Hopefully you have somebody that can take care of your horses, but yeah, take your day off. However, I will say that a lot of days off are spent in recovery. And so the one thing I would add is caution you on, don't plan a big event on Monday and your child or you or whatever are exhausted, because you have to have recovery. You have to have from a not only a psychological but a physical standpoint, you have to have recovery. If you don't, you're going to be more predisposed to injuries, and I see that a lot. They start to fall down as time goes on. So you have to kind of carve away the time, but you can do that during the day. You can take 10 minutes and just zone out, and I have people that put they cover their eyes and they check in and they listen to some of their music, and they just kind of, they pray, meditate, get into the music, and it really helps. It helps tremendously. And I think more people are more open to doing something like that.
Yes. Yeah, it does. And
yeah.
You get wrapped up in, going out for dinners and, so you're going hard all day and then you're going to the evening and and then you get a few hours sleep and you're back at it. And that is difficult. And it is nice. Yeah. Even if you're at the show and if you can take 30 minutes and put on some music, read a book. I think some people still read books and
take that audiobooks.
Or audiobooks. And take that time and just let your mind recuperate as well. So you mentioned injuries. Sharon, you have a lot of experience with people with concussions. I have, unfortunately, some experience with concussions and have helped some other people with that. And that's it's a big part of the sport. What do you see? I guess what's the most common? Let's start with this. What's the most common mistake you see with people that have suffered a blow to the head?
They return right away and they get back on the horse and they compete. I did a survey. I don't know how many, but I took a survey of, I think it was like 500. I can't remember, but 500 athletes, all ages. And I recorded what level they were at, how long they'd been riding, how many concussions they sustained, when did they go back, return to sport. Now it's much more difficult with FEI and USCF. You can't just walk back in, and the stewards, there's much more awareness of it, which is so good. But the biggest problem that I see more than anything else is balance issues are not evaluated. So you can get musculoskeletal, you don't have as many symptoms, it's like, okay, I'm okay, my head doesn't hurt, I don't have headaches, I get back on my horse and I can ride. And so I bring them down and I do a very simple test. And it's just a balance test we do as athletic trainers for our athletes. And I just have them stand on one leg and I have them balance, and I stand on the other leg and I say, okay, now close your eyes. And I have elite FEI riders that are jumping meter 50, 60, and they'll fall over almost when their eyes. So you think about how much balance you have to have when you go over those fences. Now, they are masters of disguise. Elite athletes can get by with a lot. So that's something that when I talk to, coaches, trainers, USCF, FEI, any, like at the World Equestrian Games, any of the World Cup, we talk about that. And I'm like, they will fake it. They'll just go back in and they think they're okay, but they don't have all their issues resolved. So I'm impact trained, and also collegiate is SCAT. So those are two tests that we do in order to get the athletes back into the game. The problem you have, Jay, though, is they don't want to get caught. They don't want to get caught. They also have it so the medics come in and they're like, okay, well, today their trainer will go, oh yeah, well, today's July 3rd and you're in the jumper ring in Wellington. How do you feel? And then the paramedics will come in. So they've kind of caught the game. And then what will happen is they'll come to me, and they'll have many injuries, or they'll have memory, cognitive deficits, and pretty serious balance issues. So then I have to address that with them.
Right. Dani, someone suffered a blow to the head. They've suffered a concussion, and let's say it's a minor concussion. Doesn't have to be a major one. What can they do to help their bodies physically from a diet point of view to recover?
Yeah, so this is a really great question. So there's a lot that can be done nutritionally. In fact, one of the things that I specialize in with my clients is a really customized approach to ketogenic and low carb eating. So it's not for everyone, but it's very effective for many conditions. There's a lot of research on it, and concussion and brain injury is one of those areas. So making sure that they are getting those good quality fats, the way I was talking about, the avocados, the coconut oil, and good quality protein, and reducing especially in the case of concussion, because what happens is that there's something called insulin resistance, and they can't process carbohydrates properly. And that problem is exacerbated when there is a concussive or a concussion type injury. So making sure that they do eliminate those foods that are causing that inability to process insulin and causing unstable blood sugar, with that reduction of carbohydrates and increase in fats, that's especially important for people that have endured a concussion, and even if it's previously. So even if it's an older injury, there's still things that can be done nutritionally to rebalance the body from the inside out, so that they can perform better and have good clarity and reduce brain fog and things of that nature.
That's excellent advice. Thank you, Sharon. What would you like to see as far as a back to play protocol for concussions? Well, I know you have some familiarity with other sports and what they're doing. What would you like to see happen in the equestrian world to make you comfortable to send people back onto a horse?
Well, I might not have a lot of friends if I was able to institute this, because these are my peers that I'm riding with. But I really think it's imperative, long term, we need to look at where you're going to end up as far as brain health is concerned. And with that, the brain fortunately does have neuroplasticity, which is a good thing. And there are many, like Dani was talking about, functional programs, nutrition being one of them, which is extremely, extremely important to take away from this. And I think that's those points that Dani's making are they're critical, they're vital. I think it would be nice, I'm not sure, it would take the organizations to do a baseline testing to see where the athlete is, and not approach this as a rider from a defensive move, but really say, this is where you're at. So when you do sustain a concussion, we can compare those test results, those baseline test results, to where you were when those were taken, and then where you are after that. It's a very hot topic and a very difficult topic to approach with elite athletes, but I truly believe that we can share with them the advantage that we're trying to help them and increase their longevity in the sport, because there get to be cognitive deficits, they have memory losses, you have loss of balance, you have more injuries, and one injury can be severe and that can end your riding career. So I would like to see that instituted. We do that a lot in NCAA. There are special tests that in order to return to play, you have to have those tests. So I guess from a physical therapy standpoint, athletic trainer, I'd like to see those. As a rider, I know it's tough because I've sustained concussions and you just want to get back in there and you want to do it. But I think that it's very important, because your brain, that's the main communicator with the entire body. So we have to start taking care of our brains.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, because you said people want to just get back at it. And I think that a lot of non-recognition, even from what's happening. And especially right after you suffer a blow to the head, there's a little, you don't really know what's happening, and you're certainly not thinking clearly. Yeah. And so, of course, your basic instinct is, let's get right back on that horse and away we go. And it's unfortunate from a confidence point of view that we can't sometimes just get right back on that horse, because really that is the very best thing you can do. But then you have to balance out that long-term health and safety. So, thank you for what you're doing to help people be as healthy as possible, I suppose, before they're getting back on.
Just to add one last thing with that, I think it's really important, because the amount of concussions that I see at horse shows, I think it would be very valuable to have someone there who is trained in concussion management, that can then, once they do sustain the concussion, we as our profession has, and I'm one of them that does that you can then hook up with. When I go to horse shows, I do hook up with horse show management, and I do talk to them, but have somebody that's a referral source that you can send them, because no athlete wants to go to the emergency room, and they don't have concussion protocols. So that would be something that I would like to see as well, to support, our equestrian athletes.
Nice. Dani, a question for you. Is it better as far as eating? A lot of riders don't like to eat before they ride. And I was one of them when I was younger, and often that would mean I'd be on horse 14 and it was 3:30 p.m. and I was half fainting. So that wasn't always the best plan, I would say. Yeah. Certainly as I got older, I got smarter about it. What is, should people be eating before they ride? If so, what time period should there be a break? And if so, what types of food?
Yeah, I love this question because there's we're all different. So I fall into the I can't eat before I ride category. And there's people that can eat a foot long Subway sandwich and then go jump a course. So you really want to look at what works for you on an individual basis. So if you're someone that can't eat right before, what you might be able to do is something as simple as maybe some almond milk or some protein, mixed with some protein powder. So there's something in your body, within 30 minutes to an hour prior to that ride, and then wait until after riding or when you have a good sized break, to have solid food. That works really well for me. That works well for a lot of my rider clients. We put all kinds of, different things in that smoothie, so they really get a lot of nutrients, and it's really easy to digest because it's coming, from a liquid, and the protein powder is broken down a bit before they kind of take that in. And then, on the flip side of that, if someone can eat a solid meal before, really just looking at making sure they get, maybe 20 to 30 grams of protein. So whether that's Greek yogurt, whether that's eggs, whether that's sausages or some type of meat, with an apple, almond butter. So they have a really balanced meal. And then that can sustain them, usually quite a few hours until the next time they can eat in between classes or at the end of towards the end of the horse show day.
Nice. Another question in poppy bagel. If you eat that, can that test positive on a drug test?
So it takes a lot of poppy seeds in order for that to happen. But my best suggestion would be if there's a food that you're concerned about, is just don't eat that. Pick another type of bagel, because the stress that causes on your cortisol and on your hormones is just not worth it when you can choose something else instead. So yeah. I do a lot of hormone balancing as well in my practice. So, of course, cortisol plays a big role, digestion, digestive health, and all of that. So we really looked at balancing from the inside out. But when you're looking at something like that you can avoid a really minimal stressor, you want to avoid as much stress as possible. So don't let poppy seeds stress you out. Okay,
so that's your tip for the evening, is stay away from the poppy seeds. I think that's great advice. And Sharon's tip is don't hit your head.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much. There's so much to learn from these two. For the viewers, if you have questions, look them up. They've got we put out their social media information. We put out their websites. They're all over Google. So check them out. They both said to me, seek information. They're happy to help people and work with people. And, that you both are so caring and you give so much back to the sport. And I thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next week on the Jay Duke Show, my special guest is Carl Cook from Southern California, U.S. team rider, a fantastic character and personality. I'm really excited to have him on the show. I want to thank once again Farm Vet. Check out their amazing line of products and their super customer service. Use the code the Jay Duke Show to receive your 10% discount, and look after those horses. Thank you for watching, and remember, ride safely and always respect the horse.